Now I can say good afternoon to Michael.
Good afternoon. I can hear also.
That's good. And I don't know that we have anything that I need to talk about before we go forwards here.
Can I ask a question before we go forwards?
Absolutely.
So one question that occurred to me is sort of like the goal of the questions and answers. So is the goal to help Michael better understand his experience, or for us to better understand his experience, or both,
Or neither.
or neither?
So my answer to that is in general, it's to help Michael and us become better at apprehending his experience, which is a different thing from what I understood you to be saying. What I understood you to be asking about is whether we should be trying to understand what happened today, this morning's beep, the beeps that I presume are going to be from this morning. That's a backwards looking thing, looking backwards at the experience. And my understanding of the way these things have to work is that we should be at least as interested in what will happen at Michael's future beeps as he is at his past beeps. And so our questioning should be aimed at how can we get ourselves, which includes Michael, but includes you and me as well, in a position to better apprehend tomorrow or next week or whenever we do this again, his experience.
So is the point, okay, so in this kind of iterative process then, is the point of every kind of question answer session not necessarily about the experience that Michael had in that moment, either our understanding or Michael's understanding of that experience, but rather through asking and answering the questions, the next time Michael hears the beep, he's better able to apprehend his experience?
Now that you've refined that, now I would say both. It's both to try to understand as best we can what happened for Michael's past beeps. In our case today, I think it'll be this morning's beeps. We are in fact going to try to understand that, and we're going to try to help Michael understand that, and we're going to try to help Michael tell us about it so we can understand it. We are going to try to improve our understanding of that. But as we do that, we're going to accept that he's not very good at it, that we're not very good at it, that we're going to try to become better at it. And so it is a joint forward-looking and backward-looking enterprise.
So ultimately, though, we are trying to understand his experience in those moments of the beeper, both like this morning's beeps and future ones. And that's the goal of this entire process.
That I would say yes, except it would depend on how we're defining understand. I prefer the apprehend to understand because understand has a more global, theoretical,
Mhm,
whatever gloss to it.
mhm, mhm,
But
mhm.
if by understand you meant what I would prefer to call apprehend, then I would say yes. That is the goal for us to get.
I think that is what I meant. Like by apprehend, do you mean in this context sort of like, I don't know, like describe as clearly as possible, as veridically as possible to the experience itself? Or, yeah, what do you mean by apprehend? Maybe I should just ask the question in this context.
I would agree with what you said, except that I think veridical is too strong. I don't think we can ever do that. And so I prefer, and here again it's about the words, but and I don't think DES is really about the words, but I prefer to get a high fidelity glimpse rather than a veridical glimpse, because veridical implies perfectly, perfectly corresponding. And I think that's beyond our ability. I don't think
Yeah,
I don't I
yeah.
don't think that is possible. I do think it is possible for us to get a pretty high fidelity apprehension in the sense that maybe Michael can use some words so that then we can use, so that we can understand those words and we can refine those words and whatever, and and help, and he can help us get a faithful glimpse of his experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of what I meant. I mean, yeah, I agree.
Okay. Anything else we should be talking about before we try to get a high fidelity glimpse of Michael's experience?
Well, just two quick things. One is these are not from this morning. I was worried because of my schedule this morning that that was not going to go well. So I did them yesterday afternoon.
Okay, and that's totally fine with me. I was only saying this morning because that's how it was last time.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess the other general thing to say, so I think I did maybe learn some lessons from last time. We'll see. You can tell me if I did or not. I the one thing that I don't seem to have gotten any better at is figuring out exactly where the beep is relative to experience. I think last time maybe there were several statements along the lines of, well, the beep might have happened in the middle of this thought or at the end of it or what, and that general thought of, I won't say it every time, that general thought pervades all of these. I don't think it's going on. I don't think the beep is happening and then 2 minutes later I notice it. That's not happening. I'm noticing it, I think, fairly quickly. Of course, I have no way of really knowing that. I guess I could put a tape recorder on or something and then figure out where the onset of the beep was relative to me noticing it. And maybe that would be useful to do. I don't know. But I think I'm noticing it quickly. It's just figuring out exactly where it fits in the brief stretch of time that I will describe in each case. That I'm having trouble with. That's the bad news. I guess the good news is I don't think I thought the beep was going to be very disruptive and it would cause some change in that experience. And I don't think that's really happening. So even if it's occurring in the middle of a thought, the thought, I don't think, of course, again, this is a counterfactual, who knows, but I don't feel like I feel like the thought would have continued as it was, whether the beep happened in the middle of it or not. So I don't think it's affecting my thinking, of course, in the moment when I say, okay, now what was happening in my experience just a second ago? Obviously, that wouldn't have happened without the beep. But I don't think the beep is really disruptive of that experience otherwise. That's what it feels like. Anyway, for what it's worth.
So I'm glad to hear about both of those things. And what I would say about the first one of those, which is about the precise timing of the beep, I don't want us to gloss over timing issues because I think timing issues might be important. I think they are important for some people. I don't know that they are important for you. I'm not trying to say that they are, but what I'm trying to say is I don't want to just sweep them under the rug. What I would say is that everyone has a little bit of timing issues, I think, whether they know it or not. So, for example, I have over the long haul a lot of samples of people who were talking to themselves, speaking innerly speaking, what I call innerly speaking, mm-hmm. And most times the beep comes at the end of the sentence. Somebody, or at the end of the utterance, people are saying something and then they hear the beep. That happens more frequently than could possibly be by chance. And so what I think happens is that the beep as a physical entity occurs, and then there's some processing that whatever that is, I don't know and don't claim to know what that is, but it takes some processing for you to recognize, well, that's the beep. And that processing is going on in parallel with whatever else was going on in my example with the inner speaking. Mm-hmm. And so I finished this one before I get to that one. So okay. I am 100% on board with the fact that the beep is not perfectly objectively in the external environment, I guess I would say, aimed at your experience. we're going to get close, but we're not going to, and not even necessarily close. Your impression is that it's going to be close, and I think that's reasonable. But I would like us to be honest about that, because I have sampled with some people for whom I think the beep is actually quite a long time later, on the order of minutes rather than microseconds. And
Okay. Well, I don't think it's minutes. I've never gotten to the point where it was chirping, for example. I don't know how long that is, but I remember you saying that at some point it starts chirping. Um, I don't think it's microseconds, but I think it is seconds. So it's somewhere between the minutes and microseconds.
and I was being a little bit of an exaggeration when I said minutes, but what I really mean is seconds.
Mhm.
And it could very well be that those seconds are important. So I would this is a fairly long conversation, but what I would like us to be is alert to the possibility that the beep is not happening exactly when you think it's happening.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely fair. I wouldn't claim otherwise.
Okay. And then the second thing was about the beep. The beep didn't seem to be disruptive, and I think that's good, and that's pretty typical for what people say.
Okay. All right, well, I'm ready. Those were just some general things.
Okay, good. I'm happy with both of them. Well, ready?
Okay, well, so beep number one. I have to learn this terminology. I was calling them episodes in my mind, but they're called beeps. Okay. Beep number one. um, I was playing disc golf. I play disc golf most Sundays with a similar group of people, but not exactly this. It's a kind of, whoever shows up, shows up. But and I had just arrived. I turned it on for the drive there. It didn't go off during the drive, but I had just arrived. And so there were like three things I think going on. One is I was holding the disc. These discs are like a salad plate sized or so, and they're plastic like a frisbee, but they're smaller than a frisbee. And I was taking it, but I was standing on the tee pad of hole number one, which is where we sort of warm up, and I was doing this with the disc between my fingers, but I was doing a specific rhythm. I don't think that matters, but I wrote the rhythm down. After I wasn't in the moment paying attention to what the rhythm was, but once the beep went off, I realized I thought back to what I was doing and kind of reconstructed what the actual rhythm was. It doesn't matter what it was. Well, I don't think it matters. I can tell you if you want. And so that was happening, and I was definitely aware of my beating the disc between my fingers as I was getting ready to throw it. And then I also was aware of two voices from individuals who were playing. They were probably 200 feet away, but I heard
200
about
feet?
200 feet away. Yes. This was on a disc golf course where I know the distances very well, so I'm pretty accurate in that assessment.
Okay.
And I heard both of their voices. I wasn't really registering the words, and I'm not even sure whether I could have if I wanted to, but I definitely picked up on whose voices they were. That's how I tend to identify people, is by their voice. And I heard these two fellas talking, and I was in the moment, I was registering the fact, okay, Dylan's here and Todd's here. So I was sort of making a catalog of who was here based on hearing those voices, or a partial catalog. And then the third, so there was the rhythm, there was the hearing and kind of registering who those people were. There were no words in those thoughts. It was only afterwards that I realized that I was recognizing them as Dylan's voice and Todd's voice. But it was the first time I heard them speak, so I was definitely noticing, oh, those two individuals are here. And then the third thing was I was thinking to myself, throw the disc on hyzer. Hyzer refers to the angle of release of the disc. And that one was so going back to an earlier distinction that I was asked to pay attention to, I tried. And my best guess here is that that was a thought with words. So the words throw it on hyzer were present, but they were not produced in any speech-like way. I wasn't sort of one by one producing them. It was more like seeing them. Now, I wasn't having a visual experience here of any note, this is just an analogy. It was like seeing them on a page all at once, but I wasn't seeing anything. The words were just present to me. Throw it on Heiser. And that's what
Okay.
the beep went off right before I threw. So it did interrupt that. I stopped and wrote this down instead of throwing the disc, but I don't think it interrupted the thought, throw it on Heiser.
Okay. So I'm gathering that there are sort of three things happening here. One is the tapping of the disc. Another is hearing Dylan and Todd. And the other is throw it on Heiser.
Yes.
Is any of those more salient?
I think throw it on Heiser was kind of the primary thing going through my mind, but I was definitely aware of the other two happening at the same time.
And by the more primary, do you mean 40-30-30 or 80-10-10 or?
50, 25, 25.
Okay.
I mean, I could say 40, 30, 32. I don't know what these numbers mean,
I don't
but
either.
not 80, 10, 10. I was definitely, especially the voices, because I have prosopagnosia, or I don't like the word have here, but whatever. I'm bad at recognizing faces. And so I do, like, when I'm going into a situation like that, I'm sort of semi-consciously paying attention to what voices I hear, because I can register, okay, Todd's here, Dylan's here, whatever. So I was definitely paying attention to that, but it wasn't. But still, I would say the primary thought was throw it on Heiser. It was the first throw of the day, and my most common mistake is a bad release angle. So I was telling myself to throw it with the correct angle.
Okay. So as an aside, when I say 80-10-10 or 40-30-30 or something, I don't care about the numbers at all. What I care about is what apparently is clear to you, because you said, well, it certainly wasn't 80-10-10. So it was, so there. What I'm trying to say is I don't really want to distinguish between 50-20-25 and 40-30-30.
Yeah. Okay. So I probably shouldn't have made that distinction. But anyway,
but
if you asked me for numbers, those are the ones that came to mind.
yeah. So I do ask for numbers because, and here's why I ask for numbers, because it allows me to ask you to focus on your experience and tell me which one is more prominent and about how much more prominent. And what I got out of this number conversation is, well, the throw it on Heiser is more prominent and sort of substantially more prominent, but not entirely more prominent. And we can do that pretty quickly by saying, well, 50,
Yeah,
50,
that makes
25,
sense.
25.
That makes sense.
But there's going to be no statistical analysis of the numbers or whatever.
Well, that's very wise of you.
I don't care anything about that other than the general communication about prominence, I guess.
Right. Okay.
So throw it on Heiser. Those are words that are present.
Yes.
And are those words present in a voice?
No,
And they're not present visually,
definitely not.
and yet they are present all at once, as if this worded thought was.
It was almost as if it was speech that was way too fast to be speech. So they came in the order, throw it on Heiser. But if I were to say, and sometimes I do say those words to myself, if I were to say them to myself innerly, like without saying it out loud, the inner cadence of that would be the same as if I were to say it out loud.
Right.
But this was much faster than that. It was just like a flash of a thought right before I was going to throw the disc, which I didn't do because of the beep. But it was just a quick flash of a throw it on Heiser. But I can't even say it as fast as the thought seems to have occurred.
So go ahead,
I
Eddie.
just a quick question, like were the words still sequential then? Like it
Yes,
wasn't
the
like
words were sequential.
on the okay. Mhm. Go ahead,
But
Russ. Sorry.
I think they were sequential. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they were all present. It's not very many words. So maybe I shouldn't say that so confidently. In my retrospective thinking about it, they were sequential. But of course, words are sequential. I mean, that's how words come out. Maybe they weren't sequential. I'm not going to swear to an answer to that question. I shouldn't have answered so quickly.
So what I would say about that is that I think it is absolutely possible to experience words that are not sequential. and the words that are a complete sentence. This is a complete imperative sentence. Throw it on ice or whatever. And I think it's entirely possible for those to be sequential or not to be sequential.
Okay.
So I'm not,
I'm not swearing to one or the other. I'm swearing to the fact that there were words and that they weren't spoken at the cadence of normal speech.
So then that was going to be the second line of my questioning. So the second thing is I think it's possible for words to be present that somehow have speech quality. I feel like I am speaking these words. And sometimes words can be present without having speech quality. The words can be present bereft of speech.
Yeah, I don't think they were speech quality. It was almost like they weren't coming from me. They were coming from me, but it's almost like some external observer was like, "Hey, Michael, don't forget this because you always forget this. Throw it on Heiser." Those other words weren't present at all. I'm making that up right now, but it was almost as if it was coming from outside, but I didn't experience it as coming from outside, but it wasn't speech-like. I didn't have the sense of me producing this thought.
Okay.
It just happened.
And did it have an outsideness to it, as if this was coming from the outside?
No.
Or did it just
it just didn't. It's just that it didn't have the sense of being produced by me either.
Okay. So it is in somewhere in another region, in a neither region of not being produced by me and not being received by me either, but somehow present.
It was just there.
Okay. Fair enough. And I guess I could ask, did these words seem to have some kind of a location? Do you experience this as being in my head or outside me, or doesn't matter?
I don't think it matters. If you force me to specify a location, I would say, okay. I'm not then.
Forcing. Okay.
Okay. I'm not answering that question then.
That's right. Good. And so I'm totally capable of asking questions that don't have answers, and if I do that, then you should say, well, there's no answer to that question. Or that question doesn't make sense to me. Or
it makes sense. I just don't have an answer.
Okay. So I'm happy with the worded portion. Agnes, you have more about that?
I have a kind of procedural question about like what questions should and shouldn't be asked. Should or shouldn't we ever ask questions relative to previous experiences, for instance, from last time?
I think it's fine to ask a question from last. If you want to compare, if that question means can ask Michael to compare or contrast this experience to some previous experience, the answer to that is yes.
That's what I was going to ask because I can't remember the details anymore, but I believe last time that Michael had an experience where he described it somewhat similarly, where that like a sentence just appeared. I can't remember the details anymore, but I was going to ask about whether the appearance of these words in this instance in this way was similar or different from that previous experience.
So the answer is I don't know. I think the experience you were talking about was when I was considering whether I need gloves and whether they're wet before I was going to chop the wood.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning of this, when I said, well, I think I may have learned a little bit of a lesson last time.
Right.
That it was in the discussion of that. And so I don't think I should or could really reasonably answer the question of similarity because we hadn't had that conversation about the 15,000 different ways that words can appear. We only talked about 6 of them or whatever, but and so at that experience, I was kind of floundering a little bit without the benefit of those distinctions, which I think I have absorbed at least some of that now. And so I was a little bit better able to attend to that set of issues. So that was a long way of saying I don't know.
And I would like to say I don't know is a great answer. Almost always, if I don't know is an important part of the issue, the best answer is I don't know.
I'm very good at that, so I can say I don't know.
Did that answer your question, Agnes?
Yes.
All
Yes.
right, then part two, there's Dylan here and Todd's here. I'm somehow recognizing that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Go ahead.
there were two questions that appealed to me about that. One was, is this I recognize Dylan and I recognize Todd's voice, or is this I am is the here? I guess what I want to know is whether the here portion of that HERE here portion of that is an important deal. That Todd's here and Dylan is here. Is that what
Yes,
this?
that's the crucial point. That's what I was noticing was their presence, but I was noticing it by in virtue of hearing their voices.
Right.
But it was like I heard the voice and and registered their presence.
So my
That was the crucial point. Yeah.
so my experiences of the more of the here-ness of Dylan and Todd than of the quality of their voice or the
Yes.
okay.
I mean, the truth is I must have been doing that by noticing the quality of their voice, but I wasn't focused on that at all. I was just focused on, oh, Dylan's here, oh, Todd's here. I
Okay.
didn't say those words, but and when the beep went off and I thought, well, what was going on in my consciousness, it seemed to me that I was somehow registering their presence.
So this is another little lecture here, and that is that there's a lot going on in the real world, and there's a lot going on in the neuronal world, or whatever, however you want to conceptualize that. But that's not what I'm interested in. What I'm
Hmm.
interested in is what's in the experiential world, and the experiential world is apparently substantially more about the here portion of this. Todd is
Yes.
here, Dylan is here, rather than
Yes.
any other characteristic. And when you say I must have heard their voice, I'm accepting that, but I don't care about that.
Right. No, I said I understand that, I mean, I think I was aware of their voice, but it wasn't the focus of attention at all. It was it was the presence.
Okay.
That's right.
And then somewhere along the line, you said, well, it's prosopagnosia or whatever. And was that at all present at the in the moment, or was
No,
so
no.
this may have been, this is one of those, it may have been part of my strategy to keep track of who's where or whatever, but that strategic implication was not present at the moment.
That was not going on. No, I mean that's what that was, as you say, that was going on maybe in the real world or in the neuronal world. But in my conscious experience, I wasn't thinking, oh, I got to keep track of these guys or whatever. I was just noticing their presence.
So that is exactly the point that I'm trying to make. And Agnes, in response to your earlier question, that line of questioning for me is as much about tomorrow as it is about yesterday, as it is about yesterday. It's both. I'm interested in what his experience was yesterday when Todd and Dylan were 100 yards away or whatever, a couple hundred feet away. But I'm also interested in making the point between, well, there's a lot of stuff going on. Let's not pay attention to that. So it's all, I would say almost all of my questions are both yesterday and tomorrow questions. I'm not sure about that. I've never really tried to count them, but uh, but there's a big part of me that is thinking about tomorrow, shaping this process so that tomorrow we can be more efficient in getting at his experience and set aside the neuronal or procedural or whatever and get at the experience. And I'm doing both of those things all the time.
I'm trying to be a good student.
Me too.
And so, Agnes, you have more questions about the Todd and Dylan portion?
I have one more question about the Todd and Dylan. I guess the nature of the here. You mentioned that they were like 200 feet away. When you say the experience was of Dylan and Todd being here, do you mean they are in my vicinity, or is it more precise than that? They are
Oh,
over.
it's not a, sorry. Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe Russ will tell me it's not a good question, but I didn't clarify. Here was not a spatial thing. It was where it was. Now these words were definitely not present, but remember, this is something I do almost every Sunday afternoon, And so it's a question of who is going to be playing today. Like who's going to be in the group today. So here meant like in the group. It wasn't a spatial thing at all. I mean, I could tell that they were far away, but that wasn't, but here meant I'm about to start playing with these guys.
Gotcha.
So I did think that was a good question, and I thought it was a fair question given what he has said, and it also illustrates the imprecision of language or the ambiguity of language or something like that, and I do think that we need to be alert to those kinds of things because I think that the explanation that had been given so far was ambiguous as far as whether here meant 200 feet over there or present in today's disc golf party.
Right. It was the latter.
And I would notice that Michael is quite confident about that. Michael knows what he means, at least about this. He knows what he means.
About this, many of the things
And
no, but yes, I'm sure this is what, yeah.
and so a large part of our task is to align and I'm not talking to Agnes now, a large part of Agnes's and my task is to align our understanding with what Michael clearly is trying to transmit. Until we get to the place where he's not transmitting because he doesn't know, and we're not receiving because he doesn't know, and then we will have to deal with that. Then, but to get there, we need to practice about the easy stuff, which is this, which is also about tomorrow. I want us to practice the easy stuff. I want us to accept that all language is. I think of it as gestural. Michael is using words to say, I'm trying to get you guys to think to understand something about my experiences. So this is what I'm after, and I'm going to use words to do that. And these words are not perfect, and you guys aren't very skilled at hearing what I'm saying anyway. And all of that stuff is part of the art of trying to communicate with fidelity about Michael's experience, both yesterday and tomorrow. Then there was the tapping of the disc. And I wasn't sure that I should have understood that as just an action that was taking place or a motion that I'm in the process of trying to do that or a feel of the disc or whatever.
It was more a feel. I wasn't tapping it with my fingers. I was taking the disc, see if I can show you this, and doing that between my fingers. So my fingers were stationary, and I was doing this with the disc, but I was doing it to a rhythm that I was repeating. The rhythm was about that speed. Yeah, I was definitely aware of it.
So are you more aware, and if this question makes sense, more aware of the motion of the disc,
No,
more
that's the
aware
feeling.
of the feel of the disc as it hits my fingers, more aware of the rhythm of the whole thing?
I would say the rhythm as I feel it. I wasn't really listening to it, and obviously I was producing it, but I wasn't thinking about that. It was the feeling of it on my fingers, but it was a rhythmic feel. It wasn't just it was an important part of the experience, I would say, that it was that rhythm repeated.
So this is a felt in these fingers, not so much in this hand, which is doing the.
Correct.
So this is a receptive
Yes,
rhythmic.
that's a good way to put it. Yep.
Okay.
Obviously, I was producing it, but that wasn't part of what I was even really thinking about or aware of or whatever.
That's right. The experience seems quite clearly a felt rhythm, felt in my fingertip rhythm.
Yes.
And is it is that are you just describing that rhythm, or is there something that my fingertips are feeling that particular rhythm as opposed to?
Well, the only thing I would say about so the downbeat, so to say, um, that was 4 beat. That rhythm was a 4 beat rhythm that I was just repeating. I hadn't conceptualized it in those terms at all. It was only after the fact that I was definitely aware of the rhythm, and I thought, well, what was that rhythm? And I wrote it down, but I hadn't conceptualized the rhythm. I was just kind of mindlessly doing it. But the downbeat was on my thumb every time. And so I was definitely aware of the it was I was hitting it. I think I was probably even hitting it a little harder on my thumb. That was the kind of the downbeat of the measure, if you like. I don't know if I answered your question. I was feeling the rhythm, I guess is what I would say. Not listening to it, not producing it, feeling it.
So the rhythms that you conveyed the first time and the rhythm that you conveyed the second time were not the same rhythm from my
So I'll do it
perspective.
slower. It was da 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 da, but I was fast. I was doing it faster than that, but I slowed it down so that you could hear what the rhythm was.
Okay. So so what I've got, what I'm hearing from that is it was clearly that rhythm, and the downbeat of it was on my thumb. I'm is
Yes.
a thumb reception, and
Hmm.
I'm hearing this going back and forth, but I'm not particularly interested in the particular rhythm pattern that this is a quatrain rhythm rather than a triplet rhythm or whatever. I mean, I'm not doing any of
No, I
that
mean
kind
it
of
was
thing.
in four rather than it was fours rather than threes, but I wasn't thinking that at all. The details of the rhythm were not part of the experience. I only reconstructed the rhythm after the beep went off, and I thought, well, what was that rhythm? But that I was not aware that that was the rhythm at the time. I was just aware. I was feeling it in my fingers, but I wasn't. It wasn't conceptualized as, oh, this is in 4/4 time, and it goes eighth, 16th, 16th, eighth, whatever.
Right. Got it. And that's a very fast rhythm by comparison to what was almost physically possible for a disc. Is that is that a true
Yeah,
statement?
so it's like that's how fast it was.
Okay.
I don't know if you could hear that or not, but
I could see it, but I can't really hear it.
let's see. I'll do it on my desk. It's next to the microphone.
I
I'm
can't
not.
hear
I'm
that
not.
at all.
Oh, all right. Never mind. Sorry.
Zoom is totally effective at filtering that kind of stuff out.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Pretty remarkably so, actually, but
Okay.
you can't hear it all. So when you just demonstrated that, you, you were I don't actually know whether you're right. Is it the right hand that is doing the motion and the left hand is the receiver?
No, I'm a left-handed thrower. The disc was in my left hand, and I was whacking it back and forth between my like this between my these fingers.
Okay.
I was getting ready to throw. It's just a nerve. It was just a nervous habit or something. I don't know. Just kind of doing something with the disc while I'm thinking throw it on hyzer.
So I think I'm good about that, actually. I think I'm happy with
Can I
that.
ask one more question about that? Um, was there any connection between the rhythm of the disc and Throw It on Heiser?
No, not that I could specify. No. Maybe there's something deep in my soul about the nervous energy that was being expended and being at first throw of the day or whatever, but none of that was in my thoughts at all.
I guess I meant more so not like kind of conceptually or anything like that, but just with respect to the experience of the words Throw It on Heiser with the rhythm. Like I mean, when you were describing the rhythm, you talked about like it hitting your thumb on the downbeat, and I was just wondering whether there was some kind of thing like that or in that ballpark going on with Throw It on Heiser.
I don't think so.
Okay.
So as I understood it, Throw It on Heiser does not have a rhythm.
No, no, that was so the rhythm
Spoken.
had been going on for a while because I was standing on the tee pad. I was kind of contemplating the shot and whatever. And I'm sure that was going on for a while, and it continued through the thought, throw it on hyzer. And I was literally about to stop the rhythm and throw when the beep went off.
Okay. Then I'm good. Number 2. And
Okay.
Agnes, do you want to be the primary questioner?
Sure, yeah.
So let me ask a question, because that took 40 minutes. So obviously we're not doing all 6 of these. And so do you want me to just go in? Some of them are probably, I don't say more interesting, because I don't know what's interesting and what's not, but maybe a little bit different from things you've heard versus things that might be a little bit more of the same. I don't know which of the, I can see merit to both of those. So I don't know what the right choice should be here. Or I could give you a very quick rundown of the other 5, and then you could tell me which ones you want to talk about, or I could just take them in order, whatever you want.
So I can see merit in all of those except the latter. I don't want a rundown of them because
Okay. All right.
But I'm happy to either take them in order or to have you pick, because you're right, we're not going to get to them all.
Right.
And there's merit in both of those strategies, but I don't know what the beeps are, so I think you're in a better position to make.
Okay, I'll skip the second one, which is in the middle of disc golf. I don't know that it's that interesting. We can come back to it if there's time, but the last one was at the end. We had finished playing, and 2 things were happening. 2 of the people present, the aforementioned Todd, and a guy called David, both, I was standing by my car. They both said, bye, Mike. Well, Todd said, bye, Michael. And David said, bye, Mikey, which would normally grate on me in a bad way, because I don't want people calling me Mikey. I'm sensitive to that, because when I was a kid, there was an advertisement on television for some kind of cereal, and it was, hey, Mikey, he likes it, or something like that. And people would say this to me all the time, and I'm like, I don't care about your stupid cereal and your stupid commercial. My name's not Mikey. Sorry. Did I get too animated about that? Sorry. But I like David.
I remember the commercial.
Okay. I didn't grow up watching television, so I don't know that I ever even saw this commercial, but whatever. But I like David, and he's sort of, I don't know, his personality lets him get away with that with me. And so I remember when he said, bye, Mikey, I had the thought, that's okay, because it's him. But so I was hearing those words, and I had the thought, that's okay, which was a thought in words. I said that to myself, almost like reassuring myself, like it's okay, he can say that. And then the other thing that was happening was, so I wear like an elbow protection, like a compression sleeve on my elbow when I play, otherwise my elbow gets injured. And I was removing that. And so these guys that I play with, most of them are sort of conservative Protestants, and I'm not that. And I have tattoos on my back, quite a large one actually. And I had to take my shirt off to take off this sleeve, and I didn't want them to see that, because I didn't know how they would react. And so I turned. If I had just done it as I was standing, my back would have been facing them. So I turned so that they wouldn't see my back as I was pulling off my shirt and pulling off this thing. And so I was aware. I don't think there are any words involved there. It was more of an instinctual, let's turn this way, but there were no words involved. The words I was saying at the time were, it's okay. And so that didn't turn into a description of experience. I just told you what I was doing. So I was hearing the words, bye, Michael, bye, Mikey. I was having the thought, it's okay. And I was physically aware of having turned. Like, that was a conscious thing. It wasn't a random thing, but there were no words involved with the turning. But I somehow was aware of the reason for turning. It wasn't just a random turn. But I wouldn't put any words to that. The words in my head at the time were, it's okay.
So what was so the sequence of the experiences was by Michael, by Mikey.
They were all
Then,
those were they said those almost simultaneously. It wasn't like
okay,
one then the other. They were both just saying bye, and they kind of said it at the same time.
okay. So the experience was hearing by Michael, by Mikey, roughly simultaneously. Then roughly simultaneously, the words "it's okay" and the turning with the kind of conscious but wordless feeling that of why you're turning.
Yes,
And
that's
then, of
accurate. Obviously, the "it's okay" came after the "bye, Mikey," but it
course,
was
yeah.
like this. It was like I don't think there was very much time at all between those because the Mikey got my attention, um, and sort of I don't know ancient um, complaints rose for a moment, and I said it's okay.
So when you say, so it sounds like the way you just described it now, it sounds like there was that time frame between hearing by Mikey and the "it's okay." Like in between, there was some time frame where you were like for some period reactive, but then you
Yeah, I
calm or
if it
no?
was if it's almost like it was all happening at once. I mean, I don't think I could say there was this wellspring of remember when your childhood when people said that nothing like that. It
Mhm.
was much more sort of just gut reaction. There was this like just split second of ugh, and then I'm like it's okay.
So let me comment on that question because that question I think presumed us the real world. In the real world, one person says something, one person says something, and then I respond to that, and then I say something or something like that. That it presumes a sequence, and I would like us to put that in the epoche, put that in the brackets that in real worlds that happens like that. In the experiential world, it is quite possible for there to be no sequence whatsoever. That Todd can once say something and Dylan can say something and he can respond at the same time experientially that there doesn't. So if I were to ask that question, I would have wanted to start with, I don't really know about the sequence and I don't think there has to be a sequence. If there was a sequence, I would like to know about it, but I don't want us to presume that there's a sequence from the physical world.
Okay. So is it about like the way is part of the issue with the way I asked the question? Because I didn't say, well, maybe I did say, I don't know what I said exactly, but I didn't say this was it. I said, was this it? But is the problem that I took for granted that this could be it, and instead I should have asked it in like a more open-ended way. Was there a sequence rather than was this particular thing the sequence?
The issue is it's a tomorrow issue. What I want us to do is to none of us, not Agnes, not Russ, not Michael, to presume that just because something in the physical world has to happen in a particular way, that has to happen in the experiential way.
Gotcha.
So almost everything that we're going to be doing today is about learning how to what I call bracket that, the bracket the physical world. I want us to focus on what the experiential was, and in this particular one, I would have wanted to take this occasion to say, what happens in the experiential world does not have to mirror what was in the physical world. In the physical world, it was over there, and then first that, and this one, and then I had to think about it, and all that happens. That's all physical stuff, but that is not necessarily experiential. And I would have wanted to be as a little bit a little bit explicit about that as part of the bracketing practice, as part of the
Mhm.
I'm interested in experience and I don't care about the real world. Later on, after we get good at this, then it might be worthwhile to try to figure out, well, how does something experientially match up temporally with what happened in the real world? That might be of interest sometime,
Mhm.
but not until we're good at recognizing what's the difference between what's experiential and what is in the real world, so to speak.
Gotcha.
So it's practice not only for Michael, but it's practice for Agnes. I want Agnes and Russ for that matter, but I want Agnes to be thinking, well, I got to keep track. I got to keep separate the experiential world from the, and I have to do that until I'm confident. I'm speaking for Agnes now. I have to do that until I'm confident that I am not going to project my take on the real world onto his experience. And I'm confident that Michael understands that, and Russ too, for that matter. But the and when I'm confident about that, then I don't have to say it anymore because now we both know. We all know, and once we all know, then we don't have to worry about it anymore. But until I'm confident that we're talking about the experiential world and not letting the real world seep into it, then we got to work at it.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So are you done with your line of questioning? Is it my turn about this?
Hold on, let me now think about it. I wanted to ask about the like turning around to take off your shirt
That's the
part.
next. That's the next portion. Let's finish
Oh,
up.
okay.
Let's finish up.
Okay, okay.
It's that's okay. So
Okay, okay.
you want to ask us
You go
something?
ahead. You go ahead.
So that's okay. That I understand to have been Michael saying that to himself.
Yes.
And
I said it's okay, but yes.
thanks. And and can you tell me more about the experience of that? What is this just like you said it out loud? It's okay.
This was definitely spoken internally only, but it was spoken at the cadence of regular speech. It was so there was a it was more of a it was more so going back to the earlier distinction, it was more on the production side than on the hearing side. I was saying it's okay. I was saying it to myself, and I was kind of catching myself before I didn't get upset. I think it was more like I was catching myself before I would get upset, saying it's okay.
Mhm. And is there any experiential difference between this inwardly saying it's okay and you're saying as if you had said that out loud?
Yes. The reason for that in this case, I know you don't like reasons, but I think this will actually be informative about the experience itself. I would, and maybe I should have, maybe this is part of the experience that I should have mentioned. I was consciously saying it to myself and not out loud. Um, there wasn't a huge I don't want to give the wrong impression. It wasn't like there was some thought process like, oh, you need to say this to yourself, don't say it out loud sort of thing. But I was aware that I was saying something to myself that shouldn't be said out loud. And so I was very intentional about saying it internally. Now I'm putting more, I mean, it takes me much longer to say all this than I think the actual thought process happened. But there was definitely a conscious aspect of this is to yourself. Don't say this out loud.
I'm giving a private instruction to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I
So
ask about,
I think I mentioned last time, Russ, maybe this was after Agnes left, that this is a struggle for me. And when I'm not being careful, I sometimes say things out loud that I meant to say to myself or vice versa. And I was sufficiently careful. Again, I don't want to give the wrong impression, like I didn't like pause and think about this, but I was definitely sufficiently careful in the moment to make sure I was saying it internally, not externally.
So this was said in the manner of private Michael to Michael, not Michael out into the world.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Agnes, you were starting to say.
yeah, I wanted to ask about the quality of that instruction or whatever, meta instruction, whatever you want to call it, of um, don't say this out loud. It sounds like you weren't you weren't saying don't say
That,
this out loud, but there was some kind of um, imperative not to say it out loud. And I'm wondering what the experience of that was. Like
So the
what is
best,
that?
yeah,
So
that's a
before you answer that question, let me polish the question a little bit,
okay.
because the question implied that there was going to be an answer to that question. And I think that's a mistake, because I think it's
There's only
very,
half an answer.
I think it's very, and Michael might be better at answering this question than I am, but I think it's quite likely that the process that he's describing is totally outside of his awareness, totally outside of his experiential realm at this particular moment. And I
I think
think
Mhm.
that's mostly correct.
your
Um,
question, Agnes, every question that you ask has to have that as a possibility to it. That
Okay.
the philosopher in you, if I may speculate, or whatever, is going to say, well, this process is going on here. It has to have some kind of aspect to it. But I don't think that's true. And and so there has to be explicit space and implicit space and totally recognized space. That's what explicit, implicit, all that stuff. That that what Michael has described about this process is so ingrained or so habitual or so whatever that it doesn't have any experiential ramification at
it's
all.
pretty close to that. That's what I was going to say, actually. The only thing I would add to that is that you know how it feels different when you're around other people and when you're not around other people. There was definitely like that. So the experience was definitely of being with people, and it was that being with people that was somehow guiding me saying it internally. But I wasn't thinking explicitly about like, oh, there are people here. I better be careful and say this to myself only. None of that was going on. It was much more habitual in the way that Russ was just describing.
So I guess, I mean, just to like follow up on Russ's refinement of my question, um, I'm not meaning to presume anything about his experience. I'm like, what, I guess, okay, what's the difference between asking a question that presumes something about Michael's experience and asking a question that asks him to say more about whatever the experience is? I mean, what I was trying to do and maybe failing, I mean, was just to like he said I knew like he mentioned that there was this quality um that of him instructing himself not to say the thing out loud, to say it in his head. And my question was trying to get at like what is that? Like I what I was trying to ask was tell me more about how you knew that. So I guess what's the difference between that and like asking which of these events was more salient? Do you see what I'm getting at?
So I think your characterization of what he said was correct, but only half correct. The other half of his characterization was that there was no experience of this.
Okay.
And your question honored only the first half and not the second half. His
Okay. Maybe
his
I'm then, yeah.
so this is the kind of thing where actually going back and watching videotape is really the only way to do it, and we could watch it together or whatever. But I think his presentation of the I'm saying this to myself was very much shrouded in this. I know about myself because I'm 50 years old or however old I am, and I've been doing this for 49 years or whatever, and there's no direct experience in it. And that's the that was the
Gotcha.
that was the envelope in which the message was, well, I'm saying this to myself. But you only talked about what were the contents of the envelope rather than the envelope itself, I thought. And that was what I was worried about.
Gotcha.
I see.
And I would say I don't consider myself a perfect observer of these things. I'm telling you what I thought, and I might very well be mistaken about that. And that's one of the reasons why I do transcripts and comments and transcripts and whatever. Keep myself honest and open to criticism.
My main takeaway from this whole thing is that I'm now 50, which is great. I'm going to go home and tell my wife. So are we moving to
So let's
one
go.
more?
Let's go to the back of it. Let's go to the back.
Oh, okay.
So Agnes was about to ask about the turning away.
Right.
Oh,
It was actually turning towards, but
right. Sorry, turning towards. Um, I forget what I was going to ask about the turning towards.
So let me comment right there. So was it a turning towards or a turning away experientially?
oh well,
And
experientially, it was turning my back away.
that's right. So
Yeah.
this is this is how why these words are important or whatever,
Yeah.
but not at all important. In
No, it
the
was
real
definitely.
world,
I was definitely. Yeah. Go ahead.
in the real world, he was turning towards. In the experiential world, he's turning away.
Yeah.
And
Specifically, I was making sure my back was not visible to them.
right.
And
And
that's right. Yeah.
this conversation, of course, is aimed at tomorrow's kind of conversation as well, and also a returning to Agnes's question of earlier that that we don't want to accept the correct physicality, correct from the physical point of view of turning towards, when the experiential was of aiming his back away, and
Right. No, yeah. But it's very clearly. I said turning towards because I was thinking of the fact that I was turning to face them. But you're right. The whatever thought was guiding that experience, and there was not an explicit thought, but whatever thought was guiding it was turn your back away.
I don't
Dickson.
remember what I was going to ask. Like I'm too. You go ahead,
My
Russ.
Yeah, my guess is that we've come to the end of our hour, and it's not only a clock hour, but it's an experiential hour that an hour is a long time, and so we probably ought to determine whether we want to do this again, and if so, when.
Okay.
And I would say I would say part of my process is always to ask whether we're going to do it again, and I don't want that to imply that I don't want to do that again. What I mean by that is I would like us to consider each of us as free agents, and we just because we have said sometime in the past that we might do this for a while, that doesn't mean that we still want to do it for a while. So we're always we're free agents at each step of the way.
I'm happy to do it again. While we're thinking about that, I guess I have another question, and that is, um, so you said earlier, but on the first time we talked, I think you called that day 0, that you do 10, or sorry, you do 6 in an hour, and we've done 3 and then 2 in an hour. And I don't know if there's something that I could do. I don't know if that's a good thing, a bad thing, a neutral thing, if there's something I should be doing differently to get us up to more than 2, or what?
So what I think about that is that when I say we can do 6 in an hour, that's if the goal is primarily to find out about Michael's experience, then we could probably do some number approaching 6. But our what has turned out to be the case here is that we've spent a fair amount of time talking about Agnes's questions
Mhm.
and DES philosophy in general and whatever, and that stuff takes time.
Right.
And so it is, if Michael should not think of this, the fact that we've only gotten to 2, as a failure of Michael, what he should think of it, I think, is more as he has provided the occasion for some interesting conversations between not only about Michael's experience, but about Agnes's questions and DES and what Russ thinks
Okay.
and all that stuff takes time.
I don't mind because the one that was coming next was one that made me upset, and now I don't have to talk about
Well, I'm sorry that we missed that.
it.
And I would say about this conversation, it could be that we should spend more time talking about Michael's experience.
I'm happy to do whatever people feel is the right thing to do. I just didn't know if there was something I was doing that was like causing this to go slower than you're used to.
I don't think at all. I don't think that's true at all.
Okay.
If yeah. Well, I think your comment here, this conversation highlights the complexity of the interactions that we're having here.
Okay.
And it's Michael talking to Russ and Russ talking to Agnes, and Agnes talking to Russ, and Agnes talking to the world of philosophy, and Russ talking to the world of philosophy, and all those things are
Okay.
woven into this tapestry, and they
To
take
to
time.
be honest, I'm actually not paying so much attention to many of those things right now, even though I am also a professional philosopher. I'm finding it the task of just doing the thing sufficiently taxing that that's where all my headspace is.
So maybe the moral to this story is that the next time around we should focus more on what Michael says and not if I feel the need to correct one of Agnes's questions, we should correct it, but not talk about why I'll just correct it, and then we can leave the discussion about that till later, or the comments in the transcripts or whatever. But try to keep the questions aimed at
That's
Michael.
what I'll do. I'm happy to do whatever. I just
I mean, that might be hard for me personally because if if you tell me my question is wrong and I don't understand why, then that makes it difficult. Like I want to understand why it's wrong.
Well, what I would say is that in the commentary in the transcripts, which you have said so far you're not going to look at, my commentary is much about that. It's about this is my comments in the commentary are much of the same kinds of things that we've been talking about here today that were not directly about Michael's experience. So you might want to change your mind about whether you want to see those, or not change your mind about whether you want to see those or comments. You have said I don't want to see them, but you can change your mind about that at any moment.
Okay. I mean,
And
yeah, I guess maybe I should see them.
so I would say think about that and then get back to me.
Okay.
Tell me what you want to see. The deal about the comments is there is a possibility, and I don't want us, by the fact that I am doing it, I don't want us to put my thumb on the scale of whether we should or not. But there is the possibility that we will make this conversations available to a wider audience than just the three of us. And I am putting in some comments that I think might be useful to somebody who would be interested in this conversation. And
I would like to see the comments. I just don't want to see them right now.
Yeah. And I find it most possible, I guess, to write those comments when they're happening. I just can't, 10 months from now or 2 months from now or whatever, go back and try to reconstruct what I thought was important then. So if I'm ever going to write the comments, I got to do it now.
That makes
But
sense.
that doesn't mean you have to look at them now. And
Well, then send me the comments as well. I have to get going though, so if we're gonna make a plan, we should do it ASAP or over email.
Okay.
all right, thank you all very much. I think these conversations are totally interesting. Michael, I think you're doing a great job. I think you're providing the opportunity for us to have interesting conversations in a variety of ways. And
Okay.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you. See you all
Thursday at 12. And I will send Agnes the materials and she can look at them to the extent that she wants to and decide, well, now that I've seen that one, I don't want to see the rest of them or whatever. She's free agent in that regard too.
Sounds good.
All righty.
Okay, see you
Bye.
then.